On April 29, 1986, the Los Angeles Central Library nearly burned to the ground, destroying or damaging over 1 million books. It was a huge, furious fire that burned over 7 hours, reaching temperatures above 2,000 degrees. Nearly every engine company in Los Angeles was called into service to battle this unrelenting blaze. And yet, if you lived anywhere other than California, you might not even have heard about this tragic event, because in Europe, an even greater catastrophe was unfolding. The biggest library fire in American history was upstaged by a nuclear meltdown at Chernobyl. And now, 35 years later, it comes as a bit of a shock that this event was so underreported. Susan Orlean, a book lover and library aficionado, has written a nonfiction account of the tragedy titled The Library Book, which is the topic of today's book talk. The Central Library, located in downtown LA and taking up an entire city block, opened in 1926. The library's fire prevention tools consisted of smoke detectors and handheld fire extinguishers. Sprinklers were intentionally omitted because water damage was considered more destructive than fire. The LA Times referred to the library as part temple, part cathedral, and part fire hazard. On April 29th, the fire alarm went off around 11 a.m. The staff was used to the alarm going off and expected it to be another false alarm that made a routine interruption to their day. They didn't even take their personal belongings with them as they exited the building, expecting to get an all clear after the fire department completed their walkthrough. A cursory check of the building came up empty, but the fire alarm could not be turned off. And then, out in the parking lot, the staff began to see a small tendril of smoke curling skyward. After the fire was put out and the structure had cooled, fire investigators sifting through the wreckage determined that the cause had been arson. The library staff was interviewed, and a consensus emerged that a young man with very blonde hair had been spotted around areas closed off to the public. A composite sketch circulated in the media brought in thousands of worthless tips, but one possible suspect did emerge, a handsome, very blonde actor wannabe named Harry Peak. The author did extensive research into the private life of Harry Peak, and her findings are a compelling read. But overall, the scope of this book is just too vast. The author expands the narrative to include libraries around the world and book burnings throughout history. It goes into the day-to-day operations of the LA library system, tracing its roots back to 1873. It details the lives of the librarians, and it delves into the history of Los Angeles and the construction of the building by renowned architect Bertram Goodhue. The Library Book by Susan Orlean is a New York Times notable book, a recommend by Reese Witherspoon's book club, and has received 5-star ratings from 60% of Amazon reviewers. It is a meticulously researched book about the library, the terrible fire, the search for its cause, and the man who became the lead suspect. Until next time, I'm Irene Concilia.